Has anybody else noticed that first-person shooters have really been going the extra mile to accurately depict guns lately? As someone who's from a country where the closest I can get to possessing a gun is by reaching for a cop's, I find it pretty sick being able to experience a video game's approximation of firearms without the health or financial tax that comes with actually owning one. Or reaching for a cop's. Pick your poison. Escape from Tarkov's excruciatingly in-depth simulation of a gun's mechanics, or the incredible fluidity of modern Call of Duty's weapon handling thanks to the flawless animation quality Infinity Ward has come to be known for. Your options are pretty limitless right now, both indie and AAA, but Modern Warfare 2 is an especially good example. But, I don't know if you've already heard, and I hate to be the one to break this to you, but Call of Duty fucked up. Yeah, that's right, Infinity Ward and their 9 support studios somehow managed to get a weapon wrong. God, I'm telling you, bro, these lazy fucking devs, dude. If I had it my way, they'd never see their family, friends, or a plate of fucking food ever again. I think we ought to round up the mods, get some hammers, and just fucking beat these guys to death. Okay, but like, in all seriousness, despite Modern Warfare 2 obviously being very concerned with its portrayal of weaponry, they've still been prone to making the occasional mistake. And a big one that my YouTube recommendations were utterly frothing at the penis to tell me about came with the introduction of a new shotgun in Modern Warfare 2's 4th season. A mistake that I can't help but look at and think, you know this is obviously intentional, right? Like, do you really think the people responsible for all of these don't know how to look up a video on how the TS12 functions? Don't get me wrong, I also like to engage in a little casual pedantry here and there too. A pedant file, if you will. Like damn, they really just straight removed the recoil mitigation system on the Vector in this game. Probably for licensing reasons if I had to guess. But I'm not here to engage in that kind of pedantphilia today, alright? I'm running from enough allegations as is. Instead, I'm here to talk about games getting guns wrong for very deliberate or accidental reasons and why it doesn't matter. But first, we need to talk about the TS12. This is the IWI Tavor TS12. It's a pretty unique weapon. The TS12 is an Israeli-born 12-gauge semi-automatic bullpup shotgun boasting a rather high ammo capacity of 15 rounds plus 1 in the chamber. Where most conventional shotguns would achieve this kind of capacity via the use of detachable box magazines or drums, in the TS12's case, this is thanks to the fixed 15-round cylindrical magazine that runs parallel to the barrel, with each tube holding a total of 5 shells each and the one on top being responsible for feeding the weapon. That means that once a tube has been emptied, the operator has to manually rotate the magazine to the next loaded tube in order to keep firing. It also has this satisfying little feature too, where the bolt locks open once one of the tubes has been emptied and then automatically locks closed when you rotate it and chamber the next shell. It's a pretty cool gun. While it is pretty chunky compared to other shotguns, the weapon still has this really ergonomic profile thanks to how it stores its ammo. But while this may grant the TS12 its high magazine capacity, holy fuck does this thing look tedious to reload. And I'm pretty sure Infinity Ward picked up on that too. This is the MX Guardian, Modern Warfare 2's entirely fictitious, copyright ambiguous recreation of the TS12. While the Guardian may share its likeness with the TS12, in function it's very different. The MX Guardian is a 12-gauge, fully automatic bullpup shotgun that's capable of both burst and semi-automatic firing modes, but most notably, it substitutes the 15-round integrated magazine for a far more convenient 15-round detachable box mag. So yes, while the way the Guardian functions as compared to the gun it's based off of is objectively wrong, it's pretty clear this wasn't done out of ignorance. It's not every day you just slip and completely misinterpret the way a gun as distinct as this functions. Unless you're Valve. But even in Half-Life 2's case, the fact that its MP7 shoots bullets out of the gas piston and grenades from its barrel is honestly kind of endearing in its own way. No, I think the reason for the MX Guardian's redesign goes a little deeper. Modern Warfare 2 is a very fast-paced game, with an established playstyle that I can really only describe as the youth yearn for Titanfall. So in an effort to better align the gun with this playstyle, the loading method was altered and the fire rate was increased. Like, fuck me dude, can you imagine having to dry load 15 individual shells into this thing during a round on shipment? Thank fucking god they got it wrong. I think it's also worth considering that this change could have simply been made because it's just easier to animate this version of the gun as opposed to a faithful depiction of the TS12. Ultimately, this redesign not only further streamlines the user experience with the weapon, but also looks tangible enough that I'm willing to suspend my disbelief despite the fact that this new magazine would never realistically work. That being said, it isn't the first time I've seen a shotgun getting this kind of redesign, and Hunt Showdown gave this same treatment to a rather iconic revolver that somehow manages to look even more believable. Hunt Showdown is a game that's always strived for historical authenticity, emphasis on authenticity and not accuracy. At the end of the day, this is a bounty hunting game about fighting creatures from hell invading the Louisiana Bayou. Okay, Crytek did such a good job immersing people in this alternate history 1890s post-Civil War America that when they decided to add women to the game, there was a vocal minority in the player base who was so immersed they pissed and shit themselves over it not being historically accurate. That's pretty impressive. But one of the main ways Hunt expresses its dedication to historical authenticity is through its array of weaponry. This is the Lemat revolver. It's a pretty unique weapon. The Lemat is a single-action 9-shot 42 caliber cap and ball black powder revolver that was invented by Jean-Alexandre Lemat in 1856. It was also tragically, unfortunately, depressingly, an invention of the Confederacy. Yeah, pretty cringe, I know, bit of an understatement. States' rights to what exactly? Anyway, perhaps the Lemat's most notable feature is its secondary 20-gauge smoothbore underbarrel shotgun that also serves as the axis with which the chamber rotates upon. This might just be history's first master key, and we've got a bunch of racists to thank for it. Like Modern Warfare 2, Hunt Showdown took the Lemat and made some very deliberate changes to better align the weapon with the way Hunt Showdown plays. This is the Lemat Mark II, Hunt Showdown's almost entirely fictitious recreation of the Lemat. In adapting this weapon, Crytek made the rather base decision to convert it from a cap and ball to a cartridge-loaded revolver, dramatically speeding up its reload as a result. Now, instead of having to manually pack the ammo yourself, the chamber is loaded via a standard loading gate and the shotgun is break action. Kinda sucks that the whole gun isn't just loaded via the break action. That would make things so much faster, but this gun is already pretty fucking meta as is, so from a balance perspective, I can see why that isn't the case. It's also, by far, the best sounding revolver in the game. Yeehaw. For the record, reason I labeled this gun as almost entirely fictitious is because there was a later version of the Lemat that was cartridge fed as opposed to cap and ball, produced after the Civil War, but it was commercially unsuccessful, exceedingly rare to find, and utterly hideous to look at. The Lemat Mark II, as it exists in Hunt Showdown, appropriates the aesthetics of the original Lemat whilst updating its loading method, and I'm incredibly thankful that's the case because if it looked like this, I would not use it. That being said, Hunt is a very slow-paced game. It's a game that feels like it has built-in lag. Your character moves slow, they load slow, they swap weapons slow, the guns were all designed in or around the 1800s. Cartridges were filled with black powder, giving you a much lower muzzle velocity than whatever's in modern cartridges, and engagements can end in seconds or minutes depending on a multitude of factors. But despite all of that, even by Hunt standards, adapting the Lemat faithfully would be far too cumbersome for it to ever be practical in any situation. Though, much like the changes with the TS12, it's also just a lot easier to animate a cartridge-fed version of this revolver rather than the alternative. And considering the alternative combined with how slow Hunt's reloads are, I think I'd much prefer it this way. For reference, Hunt Showdown's Label takes fucking 19 seconds to reload, and they didn't even change that one. I think I'd rather kill myself than take Crytek's honest depiction of the Lemat into a fight for real. So yeah, Hunt Showdown and Modern Warfare 2 may have technically gotten these guns wrong, but clearly not by accident. These two games are so dedicated to the portrayal of weaponry that both have gone back and reanimated weapons that had discrepancies in their animations just because they wanted to. In Hunt's case, the animators over at Crytek went back and removed a redundant action in the reload animation for the sparks after an episode of Firearms Expert Reacts made note of it. And Call of Duty retroactively added a whole new reload animation to its version of the AKS-74U for both stock and stockless builds of the weapon, because by default the operator loads it from empty by doing an Iraqi reload. A reload that needs a stock in order to be performed. Nobody was forcing them to make these changes, but they did, and that's kinda sick. But have you ever wondered what it would look like when a team sets out to create a first-person shooter with the most faithful depiction of firearms ever created, and somehow manages to get every single one of them wrong? Have you ever played Black? 2006's Black is the perfect example of the point I'm trying to make. Black is what happens when you let someone who's never seen a gun make a game that's entirely dedicated to representing them properly. You know, it'd be like if you asked John McAfee to make a game about paying taxes or being alive. It's a game that is positively rife with mistakes purely made out of ignorance, and it's really fucking funny. Some personal favorites of mine from least to most absurd include Remington 870 with delayed pump action, left-handed AK with bolt hold open, Uzi with cosmetic charging handle in place of its real one, M16 with Vietnam era 20-round magazine that carries 95 rounds, and of course, airsoft 40mm grenade. So how did this happen? The answer is honestly pretty simple. You see, Black was developed by Criterion, you know, the Burnout fellas. So not only was this game made by a team of seasoned racing game devs, in parentheses racist, but they're also British. You know, a nation that's known for a lot of things, but none of which are its lax gun laws. Thanks to an old Racevic video on Black, I found this fascinating blog post on Criterion's website from way back in 2008, where the lead weapons artist Chris Healy discusses establishing himself as the designated gun guy on this project. And like, come on man, he goes from talking about taking on the responsibility of assuring these weapons were accurately represented before immediately talking about how he was fed a bunch of airsoft guns as reference material. And it fucking shows. This is why half of them don't function properly. It's why they're covered in redundant parts, and it's why there's an airsoft 40mm grenade visible in the game. But I don't want to sound like an arsehole here, because I strongly empathize with Chris's mindset. He talks about approaching this task from the perspective of an artist, and how a lot of design decisions were made in an effort to emphasize the weapon's best features rather than simply depicting them realistically. The reason why the ejection port on the AK was swapped from the right side to the left actually wasn't out of ignorance, but because they thought the effect of the cartridges ejecting across the player's field of view was just too fucking sick not to include. And that's something that I find interesting, because despite all of its discrepancies, Black's weapons are incredibly satisfying to shoot. It makes me feel so conflicted about this game because ultimately it kind of begs the question, does it even matter that this game got all of its weapons wrong if they're still fun to use? I don't know man, there will always be that part of me that catches a game's inaccurate depiction of a gun and goes, hey yo, they fucked that up. But before I can verbalize it, my self-awareness kicks in to remind me that indulging in that impulse is a really good way to speedrun becoming the most annoying person in a Discord VC. I'd also like to think that I'm at least empathetic enough to try and understand why mistakes like these are made before immediately jumping to mockery. Because if there's anything I hate, it's scrolling through the comments on videos like these and seeing people unironically giving the whole "these lazy devs" speech. Like for real, if you think anything about Modern Warfare 2 is lazy, let alone its weaponry, then you've just got no respect for the process. I guess all I'm trying to say is that I love when games get it right, but honestly, who fucking cares, man?